All right, so get this. You ready for this one? We've got reports, we've got presidential statements, even some intel updates, all about North Korean soldiers, get this, captured in Ukraine.
Wow.
Fighting for Russia.
Yeah. You're not kidding.
It's wild.
It's a twist. I don't think anybody saw this coming, and, well, we're going to unpack it all right here, right now.
Definitely highlights how tangled up this whole war has become. You know, you've got these 2 wounded North Korean soldiers, and they're captured not even in Ukraine, in the Kursk region of Western Russia.
And that's key, right? That detail is key, because Ukraine actually controls that area, that part of Russia now, right? After their offensive last summer. So this wasn't some kind of random border clash or anything.
No, exactly. It shows how volatile that whole region is.
Yeah.
And why both sides are so invested, you know?
Yeah.
Plus, you know, and this is a big one, this capture is the first time that Ukrainian forces have actually taken North Korean soldiers alive.
Wow.
In this entire conflict. So what do we actually know about these North Korean troops? Because the reports, I mean, paint a pretty stark picture.
Yeah, they do. Well, it's estimated that Russia has something like 11,000 North Korean troops deployed in the Kursk region.
It's just Kursk.
Just in that one area. Yeah. And they're facing, I mean, brutal conditions. You know, U.S. intel suggests that over 3,000 of them have either been killed or wounded.
Oh, wow.
And there are even reports of, you know, soldiers actually choosing to commit suicide rather than surrender.
It's a terrifying thought, honestly, to be that desperate.
It is, yeah.
Makes you wonder, what is the psychological toll on these soldiers? You know, they're fighting in a foreign country for a cause that may not even be clear to them. Like, were they even fully aware of what they were getting into when they signed up for this?
That's a good question, yeah. It's crucial. There are reports that some of these troops were actually rushed into battle with, I mean, like a minimal preparation, you know, some barely even understanding Russian, which raises some serious concerns about just the level of communication.
Yeah.
And the coordination between Russia and North Korea, right? It really makes you question the nature of their agreement.
Yeah, I mean, is this a true alliance, or is North Korea, are they basically providing cannon fodder for Russia?
That's what's so fascinating about all this. Because if you look back at history, there are so many examples of alliances where one side was clearly being taken advantage of. You know, exploited, used just to kind of bolster dwindling manpower without much regard for their well-being, you know?
Right.
Could this be another example of that?
It's certainly possible, especially when you consider just how tight-lipped both countries have been about this whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's really noticeable. Their silence speaks volumes. Neither Russia nor North Korea has officially acknowledged the presence of these troops, let alone the capture of their soldiers, you know? It just suggests a deep level of sensitivity about all this. Maybe even like a fear of the international, repercussions.
Yeah. But Zelensky, he's not letting this go unnoticed. He's offered to release these captured soldiers in exchange for Ukrainian soldiers that are being held captive by Russia.
Yeah, classic prisoner exchange, you know.
Right.
Tactic. But it's also, I mean, it's brilliant from a strategic point of view. Zelensky's publicly putting the spotlight on their reliance on North Korean support, you know?
Yeah.
It puts pressure on both of those countries and kind of forces them to address this situation that they'd really just rather keep under wraps.
Yeah. And then there's just the information that these captured soldiers, they might have. You know, they could give Ukraine, I mean, really valuable intel on Russian military operations, troop movements, maybe even their strategies for integrating these North Korean forces. You know, imagine the impact that their debriefing could have on the course of the war even.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even seemingly small details, you know, like what kind of equipment they have, their training regimen, anything they might have overheard, you know, all this stuff, all of this could be, you know, incredibly valuable intelligence that could give Ukraine an edge.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the human element. You know, these soldiers, they have firsthand accounts of what it's like to actually fight alongside Russian troops.
Yeah, what's that dynamic like?
Exactly. Are they being treated as equals, or is there tension? Is there distrust?
Well, and speaking of human elements, we have to talk about the Geneva Conventions. I mean, they're pretty clear that prisoners of war, they shouldn't be made a spectacle of.
Right. It's about ensuring their dignity and their rights are respected, even in captivity.
But Ukraine, they have released some images and videos of these soldiers while also insisting that they're providing medical care and adhering to the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a delicate balance, a very delicate balance to strike.
It is. On one hand, you have this need for transparency, right, to show the world what's actually happening. But on the other hand, there's a risk, You're risking exploiting these soldiers for propaganda, even if it's done with good intentions.
Right.
It's a complex ethical dilemma with no easy answers.
It's a situation that really warrants careful consideration from everyone involved, for sure. And then there's the question of what happens to these soldiers if and when they are released. What awaits them back in North Korea?
Oh yeah, that's where it gets really, really interesting. Will they be hailed as heroes for serving, or punished for being captured?
Right.
Will they even be allowed to talk about their experiences, or will they be silenced to protect the regime's image?
Those are chilling questions, honestly, because we know so little about what goes on inside North Korea. It makes you realize how these soldiers are caught in a much larger web than just themselves.
Yeah, they're pawns, in this geopolitical game. And their fate, I mean, it hangs in the balance. But there's another player in this whole thing that we haven't even mentioned yet. South Korea.
Oh, right.
Their intelligence service has actually confirmed the captures and is assisting with the interrogations.
Right. Yeah, South Korea has a very unique perspective on this whole thing, right? Technically they're still at war with North Korea. And they have a strong alliance with the US, which is, backing Ukraine. It's almost like they're caught in the middle of this whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah, they have a real vested interest in understanding what's going on. Their involvement could have major implications, not just for this particular situation, but for the whole relationship, the overall relationship between the two Koreas.
Yeah, could this be a chance for some kind of breakthrough, or will it just, escalate tensions on the Korean Peninsula even more? It's almost impossible to predict.
It really is. What we do know is that this whole situation really just underscores how fragile peace is, and how interconnected global politics are. Actions that are taken in one part of the world can have ripple effects that reach, far, far beyond their original point.
Right. I mean, this isn't just about a couple of captured soldiers. It's about these shifting alliances, the desperation of war, the ethical dilemmas that arise when countries are pushed to their absolute limit.
And it's about the human cost of conflict, the impact on these soldiers, their families, countless others whose lives are they're forever changed by war.
Yeah. We're witnessing a turning point in this conflict with these unexpected players entering the scene. It's like watching a really high stakes chess game where each move has the potential to just completely change the entire board.
And the most fascinating part is that we have no idea what the next move is going to be. Will there be this prisoner exchange? Will these soldiers' testimonies, shake up the narrative of the war? Will Russia and North Korea finally, break their silence? All we can do is watch and wait and try to make sense of the pieces as they kind of fall into place.
It's easy to get kind of lost in the headlines and the breaking news.
Yeah.
But moments like these, they really force us to step back and really grasp the complexities of the world that we live in.
It's a reminder that even amidst the chaos and the uncertainty, there are these human stories, unfolding that deserve our attention and our empathy. We can't lose sight of that.
I completely agree. This whole deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. It's honestly made me think about the war in Ukraine in a whole new light.
And that's exactly the point, isn't it? To explore the nuances of these really complicated situations, and to encourage you, our listener, to engage with the world in a more thoughtful, informed way, to go beyond just the surface and really grapple with the deeper implications of what's happening around us.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, I have one last question for you, and it's a question I want our listener to think about too. What happens now? What does the future hold for these captured soldiers, for this whole tangled relationship between Russia and North Korea, for the balance of global power?
That's the question, isn't it? The $1 million question. And it's one that, we can only really speculate on at this point. But I think what's most fascinating to me, and maybe a little unsettling, is the silence from both Russia and North Korea.
It's deafening. It's like they're hoping that if they just ignore it, the whole thing will just go away.
Yeah, it's possible they're trying to downplay the situation, afraid of what the consequences might be. Admitting to the presence of North Korean troops in Ukraine, I mean, it could really damage their standing in the world. Maybe even lead to more sanctions. Who knows?
Especially for Russia. I mean, they're already facing so much scrutiny.
Yeah.
But ignoring it isn't going to make it go away, is it?
No. In fact, it might even backfire. The more they try and bury this, the more questions it raises. What are they so afraid of? What are they trying to hide? Could there be even more going on? Deeper agreements that we're not even aware of. Secret deals, hidden agendas.
Well, and now that you mention it, there have been some whispers of North Korea supplying Russia with weapons in exchange for food and fuel.
Great.
Could this be part of something bigger, a much larger partnership that goes beyond just troop deployment?
Yeah. It's definitely possible. And if that's true, I mean, the stakes, they just got even higher. We're not just talking about a few thousand soldiers anymore. We're talking about, potentially a shift in the balance of global power,
Right.
A strengthening of ties between two countries that have been pretty isolated on the world stage for a very long time.
And what does that mean for everyone else, for the countries that are supporting Ukraine, for the whole web of alliances that is, kind of held for decades? This could be a real game changer.
It really could. And it really highlights just how unpredictable global politics can be. We're seeing these alliances shift, old rivalries coming back, and the rules of the game are constantly changing. It's complicated. It's an ever-changing landscape. And this whole incident with these captured soldiers, it's really just one small piece of a much, much larger puzzle.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Pay attention to the silences. Sometimes what's not being said is just as important as what is.
Well said. And remember, this story, it's not over. There will be new developments, new, twists and turns. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears tuned, and keep your mind engaged. The world is a fascinating and complicated place.
And that's what makes it so exciting to explore. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep asking those questions, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.